Right now, we are in a pandemic because of COVID 19, causing a majority of people to have to wear masks in stores and public places. I decided to go to the store with my dad, who is African American, and we were both wearing masks. When we got into the store, immediately I could feel the eyes on us. People were looking at my dad and treating him like he was going to rob the store or that he was a dangerous person. Since this pandemic, minorities, especially Asian and African Americans, have been treated even more unequally than before and have been discriminated more, which leads me into the definition of a minority. According to a website on ethnic races and minorities, the definition of a minority is a group of people who, because of their physical or cultural characteristics, are singled out from the others in the society in which they live for differential and unequal treatment, and who therefore regard themselves as objects of collective discrimination. Today, I'm going to be talking about some experiences minorities face, microaggressions, and benefits to taking ethnic and racial studies classes. One thing that minorities, specifically African Americans, have experienced, including myself, is the use of the N word. So I have a lot of friends or just know a lot of people that think that it's okay to say the N word in a song because they're not using it in a derogatory meaning. But if they knew the exact history on that, I don't think that they would want to even be saying that word at all. I came across an article that talks about if you truly knew what the N word meant to our ancestors, you never use it. It was used and still can be used to make us hate ourselves. With that being said, the article goes into detail about how the word came from slaves and how white people used it in a very derogatory way to black people and slaves. Ta-Nehisi Coates argues that white people can't seem to accept this because of white privilege. He asserts that white people have been raised in a society whose laws and cultures communicates that everything belongs to them. With this reasoning comes the concept that some white people feel that they are entitled to say the N-word even though it is inappropriate. Coates states, for white people, I think the experience of being a hip hop fan and not being able to use the N word will be very insightful. This will give you just a little peek into the world of what it means to be black. Because to be black is to walk through the world and watch people doing things that you cannot do. Another thing that is common is microaggressions. According to psychologist Gerald W. Sue, who has written 2 books on microaggressions, defines the term microaggression to the everyday slights, indignities, put-downs, and insults that people of color, women, LGBT populations, or those who are marginalized experience in their day-to-day interactions with people. The thing with microaggressions is that it doesn't always seem like it's a microaggression or racist, but it really is. So, for example, the color of Band-Aids, when I go to the store, I can never find the color that matches my skin evenly. And the color nudes, they're always like a brown. Another example of this is when a white woman sees a black man at night and she clenches her purse a little. I've seen this multiple times since my dad is African American. And then another example is something that I hear all the time, especially growing up in a white community, is you're the whitest black person I know. Or they call me an Oreo because I'm colored on the outside, my skin color, but I act like I'm white on the inside. I hear this one all the time. They may not seem as racist or as an incel, but they really are. And because of the lack of education, a lot of people don't realize the harm that is done when people say things like that or do things like that. So because there is a lack of education, there is also a lack of understanding. Dr. EY, an ERS professor at UWL, says, as an instructor, I learned that many students haven't even thought about ethnic and racial issues. I'm always quite surprised that they share that they haven't learned about these issues from K through 12 learning. UWL is a predominantly white institution, which makes it even harder to be aware of these kinds of issues. So to help with the lack of understanding, all students would have to do is take an ethnic and racial class to help benefit them. Dr. EY also states that ERS classes prepare students to learn that everyone is different, has different values, and comes with different backgrounds. He also states that race is socially constructed. And he thinks that students should take these classes because they get to explore why racial and ethnic issues occur and how they should solve these issues using theories and strategies. They learn a lot about specific issues related to different minority groups and stereotypes, what kinds of challenges these groups face in ERS classes. There are many advantages to taking the class, and here are some examples of how it benefits one. The first one is that it helps prevent microaggressions and stereotypes. In an article about ethnic and racial study classes, the author talks about how culturally relevant pedagogy embeds several features of interventions designed to reduce stereotype threat, such as explaining stereotypes and identifying external forces that contribute to academic challenges, meaning that you go over microaggressions and stereotypes and how to prevent them and how to stop people from using them. The second benefit is that it increases grades. There was a study done at a high school in San Francisco, and they required students to take a class on ethnic and racial studies, and the results actually turned out that the average GPA increased by 1.4, which is crazy dramatic. They said the results are highly encouraging. This is the first casual, credible evidence on the academic effects of culturally relevant pedagogy. And then lastly, in an article, Brooks and Charles talks about how culturally relevant lessons allow white children to not only learn about people of color, but also white people's roles as oppressors and activists fighting for racial change. This is very important because often whites feel there is nothing they can do to change racism, which really applies to UWL since it is a predominantly white campus. I have taken a class in high school about race, and I've also taken 2 ethnic and racial studies classes here at UWL. It has changed the way I see situations, has given me a lot more knowledge. I learned about myself and others. I become more socially aware, and I just really think that I benefited from it so much. So not only have I benefited from here, but as a DK Chima, a senior here at UWL, has benefited as well. He says he has learned a lot from these courses, and he thinks it is all about staying engaged because he believes there is a lack of education of race across the nation. He also says taking these classes has only benefited me and expanded my knowledge. With that being said, today I have talked about minority experiences, microaggressions, and some benefits to taking an ethnic and racial studies course. I hope this encourages you to go out and take one to learn more about yourself and the world and cultures around you.